Have you managed to gain any insight into what the Senate thinks of it all? Our Senate? Yes, our Senate. Don't think many of the Roman senators are still alive. Our Senate thinks the destruction of their Senate was distasteful. But they are glad Rome was saved from the Goths, of course. You know, still of two minds, as always. And there is so little time left to change that. I need to present my proposition as soon as I can. You mean to say that you won't be able to present it soon? That's the outlook. Both the Roman and the Celtic healers seem to agree. Then you are right to propose the measures as soon as you can. If there is no emperor when you pass, it will be chaos. Not an emperor. I will not propose that. Not anymore. No, don't sound so apologetic. I was rather against it anyway. Make the consulship hereditary. Is that it? And extend it to another, so that two may hold the office. You wear your influences clear for all to see. We're not to be a republic, are we? That has its own problems. Let Rome remain an empire, but an empire free from the madness of a single man. Finally, Constans is doing some lasting good then. He's shown us all the folly of letting no one disagree with a man atop a big army. One day, Julianus, you will realize that although you disdain your brother, he has done great things that are beyond you, just as you have done things beyond he. That is why there must always be two leaders. You see, I've been reading my histories again, thinking about creating a final volume. I realized that so much of what I did, I owed to the achievements of another, General Tullus. Without an opponent with enough power to stop me, I would not have been so careful, so driven to succeed and to please everyone. Not to mention the services he provided militarily. It was Tullus and I that won Britannia, not just I. And in the future, whoever leads Britannia, or perhaps all of Rome's lands, they must have their Tullus, their counterbalance to keep the realm stable. Constans and I, then? Preferably ones who won't try to kill each other. Constans and Aurelianus, then. And may the gods have mercy on us all for everything that will come of that. Have faith in your family, Julianus. Ultimately, they are all that matters. Perhaps. Hello and welcome back to Fields of Mars. In the previous episode, Constans, having successfully taken Rome, went on to destroy the Visigothic armies around the city, thus saving it from their potential attacks. Meanwhile, Tullus was sent to retake Palma, which had been lost to the Roman separatist faction of Hispania. The enemy made it easy for us by drip-feeding their units outside of the town into Tullus's formation, so they were soon defeated. Then we made some diplomacy with the Eastern Roman Empire, getting Julianus married into their imperial family. We also learned, though, that the Eastern Roman Empire were in trouble, and Constans, hearing this, immediately rushed out to go in that direction, first attacking Tarentum. And then finally, we defeated a force from Macedonia, which also randomly attacked Palma, but couldn't overcome the garrison. So there's the results of that battle. It was a Pyrrhic victory, but with only a garrison at stake. That doesn't necessarily matter. So that Macedonian fleet, the survivors of it anyway, escape out into the sea, and then, right after that, the Western Roman Empire, who of course are at war with the Macedonians because they are a Roman separatist faction, go and absolutely annihilate them. So that's nice, but the thing it only reminds us of is the fact that the Western Roman Empire has tons of forces right next to our territory here, and they still haven't done anything with it. It's been there for many turns, and I'm beginning to wonder whether Constans has somehow used his thumbscrews on the old Western Roman Emperor to just stop anything from happening there, because they could definitely take our lands if they wanted to. Now Constans himself is going to quickly storm the Roman city of Tarentum, for no other reason than he wants to go past it. We're going to defeat the garrison here in order to remove its zone of control. We do that easily. We'll sack the city to get some money, which leaves us with movement points and gets rid of the zone of control, so we can now jump into the sea, because of course Constans has business in the east of the empire now. He wants to go and have a little look at what's going on over there, because we've heard that everything's going downhill, and there may be some chances for him to once again win glory in the same way that he did by saving Rome. Notice there's some Arian forces from very far east hanging around just outside the ports of Tarentum. Quite strange. Another strange thing is that Tullus has lost all of his influence somewhere along the way here. Not exactly sure how, but it means he can't be promoted into the office he was going for, which I think is Master of Offices. And now you have the choice of either letting Constantinus force him into it, or just declining the attempt to get into the office. And I decided that I needed to save some of Constantinus's also quite low influence at the moment and just do nothing at all and let things happen. So I think it might be just because Tullus has taken up so many offices and hasn't done enough to please our people that he's not gaining the influence he needs to keep these offices under his belt. So we noticed there that the Huns have reappeared and have started raiding on our territory, and that the Arians actually captured Tarentum, so now have established a base in Italia. So we definitely need to make sure that nothing comes of that, because there's a decent chance they'll be hostile towards us as an eastern power. And the Huns, of course, are being hostile towards us, although we're not at war still, and we have no forces nearby to do anything about it. So we're really just crossing our fingers and hoping the Huns don't decide to escalate their current raids to an actual attack, because they probably could take Neapolis and perhaps even Rome. I can move Aurelianus back from Ajax. He was over there to defend against possible attacks by the Western Roman Empire, so that will increase our defences slightly. And very nicely, the Huns actually just leave at this point, and they aren't willing to hang around. Perhaps scared off by the fact Aurelianus is now in town, they go and raid someone else. And now we get a very interesting move from Macedonia. Since we are near their territory, they suddenly appear, so not entirely surprising, but it is surprising that they're trying to make this attack against Constans, where they have pretty much no chance of winning. You can see they've brought a few troops from a land army in transports, but more importantly, they've brought a few naval units. The balance marks super far in our favour because we just have a huge numerical advantage. But the thing is, these naval units on an actual battle will have a really big advantage against all of our transports, especially those siege ships. So I decided, in the spirit of fairness perhaps, that I would actually fight this. Plus, it'll be nice to see a naval battle now and again, so let's have a go. It wasn't a matter of resources. Admit it, you just wanted to see everything that wasn't yours fall into ruin, didn't you? You begged your treacherous lord that the Eastern Empire be banished, so that only one empire and one emperor remained. Oh, I'm sure the Lord told you that the empire was indeed destined to have only one emperor, but did he ever say it would be you? Even if he did, it matters not, for he has no power over the matter anyway. You should have asked Jupiter. He would have told you the way that things were really going to go. He would have told you that you would see the empire saved, see the people cry out in joy for their noble protector, and he would have let slip that you would be in chains at my feet throughout. So here's Constans' fleet, now preparing to engage the suddenly appearing through the fog Macedonian fleet. The archer transports are up front, ready to do ranged battle with the enemy, because of course we'll all have seasickness, so we want to stay out of melee if possible and try and use these archers to bring down as many enemy marines as we can before any actual melee combat on the ship starts. Those marines, the heaviest marines of the enemy's fleet with their admiral, are leading in the advance of their fleet, but they've also got these siege ships, and these are going to prove deadly, because just a couple of hits from the flaming boulders these things are firing will take down an entire ship and its crew simply go with it. So immediately one of our archer ships is destroyed. Well distracted by that, another archer ship is caught in melee by the enemy's admiral. Terrible for them. They'll now have to deal both with seasickness and with fighting superior enemy troops. So they're in big trouble, and fire arrows are raining down everywhere, which over time will set these ships on fire, which also destroys the whole unit. The enemy siege ships mercifully miss their second round of shots, which is great, buying me more time to advance up towards them. My archers can now start bombarding the enemy's marines, although big risk of friendly fire now because they'll be hitting my own archers at the same time. Perhaps worth it though. A unit of legionaries pushes through to try and get to the enemy's archer ships and disable them. If we can get the legionaries on board those archer ships, they'll have an easy time taking them out, but they're taking taking so many fire arrows that their boat might actually catch fire before they reach it. Meanwhile, I sent 3 ships to go and engage with the enemy's siege ships, and one of those ships is going down right now. These are the ships carrying the cavalry crew, now without their horses, forced to advance as an infantry unit, with only small ships, a little bit harder to hit than other ones, but still easy to destroy. Finally, some of the legionaries get on board this enemy ship carrying only skirmishers, where now they'll be fine because even with seasickness, their stats are high enough to destroy skirmishers, and the enemy's actual infantry units coming in on the transports will also have seasickness, and our infantry is better, so they should do fine against those as well. I also managed to get some legionaries onto the back of the enemy's admiral ship, so they can now work their way forwards to try and defeat these marines and hopefully kill the admiral somewhere along the way. The archers they engaged earlier have now surrendered, leaving only a few alive, but the ship is still floating, meaning the unit hasn't been entirely destroyed. On the left flank, my forces advanced to meet the enemy's transport ships, where I'm hoping to find easy victories against these units, like these skirmishers here. We've seen before, though, that fighting skirmishers at sea is hard because they don't go into melee once the first members of their unit are in melee like they do on land. They will keep throwing, even as my men keep jumping onto the ship. Luckily, legionaries with their high armour and big shields are perfect for absorbing javelin fire, and they actually managed to get away with it much better than other units we've seen before trying to do the same thing, so now they'll have a nice easy time against those skirmishers. One of my cavalry units makes it to the enemy's siege ship, so now we can start engaging one of them at least in melee, and they should do fine there even with the seasickness. The siege crew have pretty much no melee stats, so they can work their way through them. The other siege ship, though, still going to be firing into the big messy blobs in the centre of this sea battle. So those legionaries that we just saw engage the skirmishers win pretty soon and set the enemy ship on fire. One of the enemy skirmishers tries to get onto our ship, decides he's not welcome, and jumps back onto the sinking ship. Probably not even a good idea, probably should have just surrendered to us, but oh well. More legionaries here are diving to attack this enemy general unit in a transport, but their ship is hit by a shot from a siege ship and sinks, and they decide they're also not welcome with the enemy ships. They'll jump back onto their own ship to sink with it. Unfortunate, a whole unit of legionaries being lost just like that. They could have done a lot of damage to that enemy general. Here we can see a skirmish unit going up against enemy skirmish units on their ship. So using these guys in melee proves to be okay, the Matiarii, and they do manage to destroy this enemy ship. Another one going down over there to Matiarii as well. So that actually clears up the enemy's army coming in on transports. The siege ships are cleared up with help from some spear cohort. They went over to help my cavalry units. And now it's just this battle in the center where we have a nice advantage, as you can see on the balance bar, but it's hard to actually close it out because the ships are all just jostling weirdly against each other and glitching out, so we can't get boarding actions going quickly, and it's hard to make ranged attacks as well. Overall, just an absolutely enormous mess. Basically impossible to tell what's going on, especially from above, since you can't see through all the sails all the time like we can here with this low camera. This unit of Matiarii managed to get some nice shots on some unengaged pikemen who are pretty much undefended against javelin attacks. And finally we managed to set fire to the ship carrying the general of the land army on transports. So that's going to be a nice morale blow for the enemy. Plus they now have basically nothing left. So that final unit, the Germanic pikes, surrenders to us, and that's a victory in the end, although only a close victory. Despite that huge advantage we had on the balance bar at the start, we lost absolutely loads of stuff in that fight because it was a naval battle. As I sort of predicted before, it's much harder in reality because of the weakness of transport ships. So let's look at the full results. Looks like we lost 6 complete units, 3 legionaries, an archer, and 2 cavalry, and other units have been completely demolished in terms of their troop count thanks to unfavourable boarding actions. The enemy forces, of course, all completely eradicated, but that's almost of no consequence because there weren't really many of them, and they're not any threat to us overall. So that was a costly engagement indeed, and may cause Constans to rethink his plan now that he doesn't necessarily have enough troops to go ahead and campaign in the Eastern Roman Empire as he had planned. But before we can think about that, we get this message saying that the leader of the 4th Legion needs to be replaced. And I couldn't even remember what force this actually was, but you can see on the right there in the event messages what is actually happening here. There has been a death by natural causes. We'll quickly replace this guy with someone who looks like Constans, as usual. This face always seems to keep coming up. And now we'll just push through the news about enemy officers dying to look at the news about our officer. It's Flavius Claudius Constantinus, our faction leader, has died of old age. Not even that old, but he probably led a pretty hard life up to now, so not too surprising. And this does mean that Constans is now the faction leader. It also means that his wife, who had the trait of being an unfaithful wife, immediately has someone to remarry in mind. So we have the option of preventing her from doing that, and the decision is now technically down to Constans. So I don't know how they found him to ask him about this, but basically he would not care at all, so we'll just allow them to go ahead with that marriage. So this means that back over in Britannia, our most senior military leader is now Julianus, who currently is stationed up at Tullus, acting as a garrison to improve public order up there, and he can now move south down towards Britannia Superior, because suddenly his importance in Britannia is going to shoot up, as he is going to be Constantinus's de facto replacement, at least in the local administration, even though Constans absorbs his absolute authority. Not that he's in any position to actually apply that, because he's just going to continue on his little quest. And what I thought we could do here is actually go after Macedonia. We need a chance to replenish our army. And we know that Macedonia are low on troops since they lost that battle to us at Palma, and they've just lost even more in that naval battle, and we can see that indeed the way is pretty clear to what is their only settlement. It's got a pretty decent garrison, but our troops are powerful enough to overcome them. What we can actually do here is land beside the town on land, so that we don't have to make a port assault, and the enemy's navies will just get out of the way as we came in, as we saw there, to make that possible. And now, even though we don't have any movement points, we actually can just initiate the battle and do this attack right away. We get a small advantage on the balance bar, the enemy having a decent garrison inside, led by their self-proclaimed Emperor of Macedonia, who doesn't rule very much territory as it seems. They'll have a few reinforcements at sea who will land as well, but no big deal there. This assault certainly seems possible, but we definitely need to avoid losing any more troops, because we can't get these legionaries back. In ordinary circumstances, I think I would return to Britannia to pay my respects, and I would benefit greatly, I think, from putting a reminder to the Senate in person that I am in fact still out here, keeping ships floating and people eating. But no, it will not happen, for it cannot happen. For a child in the body of an adult has just been named among the world's most powerful men, and yet few can find him to inform him of this honour. The invisible guardian of Rome, or more realistically, the lost guardian. I find magistrates, officers, and priests alike all coming to me for answers. What am I to tell them? That we who conquered them can't find the army pledged to them? All they have is me, and I grow tired of pulling this empire's weight. Constans has grouped all his forces together for a main attack coming from the west, and in the front of that attack are the Matiarii, formed up in loose formation to take the tower bolts as the overall formation advances towards the edge of the enemy's position, where you can see they set up infantry and cavalry curiously ready to resist our assault. I've also got a distractionary attack coming from the other side of town, the main goal being to just draw enemy infantry away from our main assault, and once again using skirmishes loosened up, both to take enemy fire and to deliver some damage to the stationary enemy units who aren't coming out of the town to fight us, so they will just have to stand there and take our missile fire, so we might be able to do some damage to them. The enemy's cavalry considered coming out to attack our army, but we bombarded them with arrows, and that quickly made them change their mind, and they rushed back inside their defences with a few men lost. These skirmishers are able to attack another avenue into the town just to the left of the enemy's main defences, where once again we have some enemy infantry who are refusing to come out and fight us, so they'll just stand there and take more and more of our javelins, which is great. Now the legionaries are about to start the main push, where we need to get past this tower and up the main avenue into the town, and that of course means defeating these enemies. The enemy used their cavalry as their first line of defense, which is an awful choice, so a few javelins take some of them down, and now this melee will be very favourable to us. They also have comitatensis spears, which are no match for these legionaries. This will be a very favourable engagement. In come even more cavalry, so they're just throwing everything into that fight. We can do the same with our infantry in the area, and our infantry is better, so that should be okay, but it is the tower that's going to be really doing damage to us. So you can see that I'm attacking one of the other avenues, and we're also now making an attack on the distractionary side, the eastern side, but it's only spear cohort going up against these legio, the legio being an attacky sort of unit, spear cohort being defensive defensive, and the fact that the tower's firing there means that actually we can't really win this fight. We're just trying to buy time here and try and get the enemy to put more than one unit defending this side of the town. We've also, by the looks of things, taken some friendly fire from my skirmishers, so I'm going to be repositioning them to try and get some shots on the enemy. Now in the main attack, I really want to get rid of that tower because it's doing serious damage to our legionaries fighting on the front line, but we don't really have many units because Constans has already lost half of them in that naval battle, so in order to try and support this attack and capture the tower, Constans himself will have to go in, first to take out this unit of Comitatensis spears which is engaging our legio, and then we'll have those 2 units to capture the tower which is on the flanks of our troops, and very quickly those Comitatensis spears are defeated, being no match for both the legio and the rear attack from the Palatina guards. So with them dead, we now desperately want to get rid of this tower, which is just absolutely thwomping our troops right underneath it. There's Constans himself, luckily still alive at this point. The tower goes down. That's great. That's going to massively change how this melee here goes. Plus, we can flank attack it using that unit of legio, which can just about sneak in and touch the side of all the enemy units there, so applying a morale debuff and of course going to kill some with their melee attacks. Now there is only one road leading into the town here. The multiple paths will just go together. So we're going to have to just hack our way through that little bottleneck of enemy troops. And the bad news is that our distraction is now over. The spear cohort were defeated when the enemy brought a load more units over. But of course, that's exactly what I wanted them to do, so I guess this is good. And the Matiari are going to have to just get out of there because they're in trouble now. So at least we've kept a decent number of enemy melee units out of this part of the fight, which has allowed this fight to be won by us. We've taken down the tower and now we finally got ourselves our way into the town. So we'll clear up these guys and now can sort of form a column of legionary units where one at a time will march up the street and do battle with the enemy units still inside the town, of which there are still quite a few. Here we can see one of those units, some legio, trying to hit our guys with darts. Luckily our massive shields are just stopping basically all of them. I ordered this unit into stationary testudo, and the moment I did that, that's when they start taking losses. I think the process of transitioning between the formations leaves them a little bit weak. But anyway, the enemy now run out of darts. I thought they were going to charge me, but actually it's their medium infantry which rushed through the ranks to cover charges instead, with one of the least enthusiastic charges we've seen so far, just strolling into the legionary lines and now engaging in combat. So we'll have the melee advantage here, and the nice thing here is that we can have one unit at the front doing all the fighting while the other units rest and keep their stamina high, and then when the unit at the front gets tired we can switch them around so that we have extra fighting power. Also still trying to push through on this other approach where the enemy have deployed loads of units fighting with just one of our legionary units, and actually that's going okay, and again a great distraction as our main assault continues into the town.
Think, my brothers in arms, of what glories we might save. Think of Constantinopolis, think of the treasures, of the wines, of the art, writing, music and theatre. All of the things that will be lost to the world if the empire is not saved. What a vile tragedy it is that we must save it not just from the lower kinds of man, but from our own family, our cousins who have fallen to brutishness. Let your hatred of these familiar foreigners sink deep into your noble hearts, and power your fighting spirit in a flourish of martial rage. Yes, let loose, my friends, let loose the demons dormant in your soul, so that they might be expended in the destruction of our cursed foe. Let the warmth of blood be the confirmation of your faith and honor. Oh, the sight of it!
The retreat of those skirmishers on the eastern part of the battlefield comes up with a sneaky advantage for us, because I had a hidden unit of cavalry out here and the enemy sent some archers out to chase my skirmishers off. Absolutely perfect for those cavalry to just appear and annihilate them. So that went a tiny bit better than expected. We've managed to destroy an enemy unit as well as just distract them from the main battle. Those skirmishers are really damaged and are not going to be of any further use in this fight. Really, we're just waiting for this grind now here in the main street. We just need to actually fight through all of those enemy units. Helping us out are our archers, who are able to arc shots all the way over these buildings and our units to fall down into the big blob of enemy units. So that is nice. We'll probably hit a few of our own troops, but hopefully that will overall make that fight much shorter. Now, on the other fight, where I was trying to push in on the west side of the town, I managed to do something which is very rare in Attila, and that is replace the unit that's fighting while it's still in battle. This unit of legionaries had almost been defeated and was exhausted, and I managed to replace them with some spear cohort without losing any of the legionaries in their attempt to pull out of the fight, which in Attila in particular is usually impossible, so that was quite nice. Perhaps because the enemy were exhausted and because the spear cohort did a really enthusiastic charge and managed to push themselves to the front of the melee from the back as they came in to fight, so most of the legionaries were taken out of the melee already by that action. So anyway, with that done, the wait continues really. We'll just have to get rid of all of these lighter infantry units fighting with our legionaries, and that unit of cavalry I revealed earlier can now come in to help out by attacking the enemy from behind, which of course is devastating. Their morale going to start dropping, and the units attempting to escape there will have a hard time because they have to escape through the cavalry since they are trapped in here by the buildings. So either it's heavy infantry to the front or cavalry from behind. Both options pretty bad, and soon we defeat all of those infantry. Those spear cohort doing the relieving action also defeated their opponents. I didn't want to advance down that road though because there were more towers back there, and I thought let's not take any more unnecessary casualties. The enemy have taken such heavy losses that we only need our single approach now. We just have to hack our way through these marines here, and off they go with a rout. And now we'll have a clear path over towards the centre of the town, where at this point in the battle I didn't know what was there, but it's actually just one more unit. Those marines come back from routing, and that was a terrible choice because now our troops are formed up. We've got this double set of legionaries. Some of them have javelins ready to bombard the marines as they approach, so they're going to lose most of their men pretty much immediately. The only issue for us is that our troops don't care about friendly fire, so they are just throwing it into the back of our own men there. Very nice. But anyway, this fight is going to come to an end very soon because these marines have no ability to take down the legionaries, and they shouldn't have tried. They all die. No one even escaped from that fight thanks to the accurate javelin fire from our men. So those two units will just block the enemy units coming down the street there. Surprisingly, the enemy still have units to deploy, and the spear cohort behind them is going to destroy this barricade, which will allow us to go into the centre of town, where, as I said, it's just one unit, and it is the enemy's general standing here on the capture point. So my archers will equip heavy shot and start bombarding this unit in an attempt to damage it. The balance bar so far in our favour that I thought we might be able to just get them to rout if we attacked them. Moved out some skirmishers who still had a tiny bit of ammo to attack them as well, so they'll be combining with the archers to be totally raining fire on this unit. You can see they are wavering from this attack. I thought perhaps if we're lucky these skirmishers will kill the Emperor who's standing right there in the middle with his very obvious shield, but unfortunately for us we didn't manage to do it. Even with all this fire, the Palatina guards seem to just resist it, and the Emperor himself takes tons of stuff in his shield but doesn't die. Everyone on either side of him is dead except him. A very lucky individual, but eventually, after just leaving the battle running for ages and loosening up all the archer ammunition, we managed to take him down without having to spend any more troops by going into melee. That's what I was looking for. Those fire arrows right at the end there, reducing the enemy's morale a tiny bit more and perhaps pushing them over the threshold. So that's a close victory for Constans, one he sorely needed. His force is now even weaker than it was before, but he may have bought himself some breathing room with this conquest. Constantinus' death was a political test for Britannia. He had, at least, been given authority over the islands by the Roman Empire. Now his successors would be authorized only by their own will, and by the largely ceremonial mandate of the Britannian Senate. It was time for the shape of the Britannian political structure to be finalized. On his deathbed, Constantinus had arranged for a system of 2 consuls taken from the old Roman Republic, only with each wielding levels of power more familiar to the emperors. The position was lifelong and was to be automatically passed down the male line of his own family. However, the Senate were granted the power to impeach and replace a consul. This tiny concession became all that distinguished the Britannian administration from the Roman one. Thanks for watching, so we'll see how Constans gets on with the rest of his journey and how the Britannian territories go on without Constantinus in the next episode of Fields of Mars.